today on the Scenic Route podcast, I'm joined by Jeanne Carlier. Jeanne, welcome to the Scenic Route podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. I'm really happy to be here with you.
Yeah, me too. I'm so excited. I'm always so excited when I get to meet new people, and I'm sure today, I feel like today is gonna be like this conversation is going to go real deep. Probably most likely because we share a lot of similarities, Jeanne and I, not
Yes.
only in parts of what we do but how we do it. So Jeanne, can you briefly walk us through your story so listeners get an idea of who you are and how you started and how you got where you're today? What are like the pivotal crossroads, the light bulb moments you had along the way?
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I'm from France originally. That's where I was born and grew up, and where I started my career as a designer. I started like working in a little like family print that we were producing products for tourists in Paris. And it was a very old company, but still family run. And one of my first light bulb moments was there because we were making products that were coming from China. And I was asking, like, do we know anything about the people who make our produce and our products?
Did you make printed flyers and maps and...
Yeah, but also, like pencil case or stuff like that for kids, for tourists. And so, yeah, they were printed in China and produced in China. And so the first time that I asked, hey, like, do we know anything about the conditions or like who works for us, etc., I got a response like, oh, you don't want to know. Like, you don't know.
yeah. That's so funny that I had a similar experience when I was working for an international advertising agency, and we did like high-end, like super high-end print materials for a luxury cosmetic brand. And I'm like, yeah, like there's so much budget, there's so much profit margin, profit margins, and we're printing, and like they have, I mean, we would like, it's the kind of it's the kind of poster you would actually go to the printing machine and be like, oh, this skin tone needs 1% more magenta. Like that's the level we're talking about. If you're a designer, that's the level of detail we're talking about when you deal with luxury clients, which is fine. I don't mind. But at the same time, they were printing God knows where. And I'm like, that's not gonna work. Like it cannot do it like from the computer and then fly to Asia to oversee the printing production. Like
that doesn't work. So it takes way much longer also to do the proof in that case, and
everything. And then you have cultural differences, language differences. It's so funny that you shared it because been there, done that. I totally relate.
So that happened, and when they offered me like a long-term contract, I was very young at the time, and I was like, no, I can't.
You are still very young.
That's very nice, but I can't take it. So I left the company and decided, and like life happened, and I moved to California.
And when was that?
That was in 2014, and I spent 7 years there.
Wow.
I'm back in France now. But it was wonderful. I also worked for a family-run company there. And same, it was a very old company, like 100 years or something. And we were making baby products, kids products. So that was super interesting. And they were branding. So there was a lot of work to do. But the issue was how they were treating their employees there. It was really hard. And also, I mean, coming from France, where you have like 5 weeks of vacation and, you can go to class and stuff.
Yeah. How many hours a week, working week? 38, 37 or something?
You can work 35. I did work 39, but you're paid hourly, and so the 4 hours additional hours you're like paid more
Yeah,
So
okay.
you're kind of happy
Fair
to,
enough. Okay.
yeah, yeah, that's
Fair enough.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But in the
even
US,
here,
yeah.
it's even here in Switzerland, it's like minimal is 42 hours. That's kind of like,
Okay. 42 is a lot.
I know,
I
way too much. Way too much.
haven't
I mean,
worked a 40
but I
hour
mean, you
week in
know,
a long time,
and
but
then I'm like, people be like, I don't know, you're not productive for 8 hours a day. That's like ludicrous.
no.
And then you look back at, and then I think back at my office days. I would come in, I don't know, at 7 o'clock in the morning. Then I got actual deep work before everyone else came in.
Yeah.
And then a lot of it a lot of time went down the drain with senseless meetings and
Yep.
like coffee breaks and all. It's just,
Yes.
yeah.
All
But
the
anyway,
coffee breaks and all the blog reading to make sure you're up to date on what's going on in the world and stuff. But like you would spend 2 hours of your day doing that kind of stuff.
yeah.
At least that's what I used to do.
Oh God, yeah. No, I mean,
Like,
but to some extent, like I mean, to some extent, yes, it's all relevant, right? Because you have to stay on track what you do. But
but
in every company, there's so many things you could be like, oh no, you
yeah,
could get everything done you need to get done when you
yeah.
don't measure with how many hours am I there. Like,
Yeah, that does, and it's so it doesn't fit how we work, like
yes,
how our body and mind work, like to be
yes,
there for a set amount of hours. It's so constraining, and
yes,
it's so much time. It's so much time.
yeah. And especially I feel for creatives, like I mean, some days it flows, and if it
Yeah,
doesn't,
yeah,
we're professionals, we still can get it done, but it takes more time. And
yeah,
it's not like, oh, okay, yeah, 8 hours. Oh, okay.
yeah, totally. 8 hours sitting at this desk. Yeah, that doesn't
So
make sense.
that was kind of like the second pivotal moment when you're like
Yeah,
working in the States, in California, for the baby company,
yeah.
and they were treating you and the other employees
Yeah, not very
badly.
well. Yeah, and just learning the fact that you can be fired from, very quickly, and you
Yeah,
see
that's also just a US thing. That's not a
it's
European thing.
existing.
Like,
Yeah, but like
yeah, yeah.
seeing that with a new pair of eye, it just feels really weird to someday somebody is not the next day somebody is not there anymore. It's so weird.
Did that make you feel?
It makes me feel unsafe. You
Oh, yeah.
uh, like that your job is not secured and
Mm-hmm.
you don't know what tomorrow is going to be like, and living like this every day just
Stressful.
builds a stress. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So you have like an underlying stress that doesn't feel good at all, like
Mm.
stress. And then I went into a different company that was much bigger and more in the digital world.
Mm-hmm.
And here it was super interesting because I learned a lot about, politics, office politics, but also a lot about UX. If you don't know what it is, it's like user
Yes.
experience. Yeah. And I mean, I know you know what it is, but
Yeah. No, I know. But
yeah.
my people are smart people.
Yeah.
People who listen here, no. But it's no. Thank you for explaining the abbreviation.
Yeah. And so, they were asking me to learn about how do you keep people's attention? How do you
Yes.
keep them on the app?
Yes.
And just like it felt a little bit manipulative and ultimately not great. And it's not why I left the company, but at this point I was ready to, do my own thing, also because of personal stuff, mainly because my life is spread over two continents, right? I have family in the US and I have family in France. So I want and need to be flexible if something happens in one country or the other. And also because, chronic digestion and problem with insomnia. And so being in an office at 8 a.m. when you have chronic insomnia really sucks. Or also when you have digestion issue, because it's not something that society is okay with.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. I get it. Like, I
yeah,
mean, I have IBS and
yeah,
endometriosis,
yeah,
so it's just And I
Yeah.
also don't feel like explaining every time why I'm now like
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
pain. Like,
Yeah, you
mm,
don't want to have to explain yourself all the time.
yes.
Like I just said that to somebody 2 days ago, and it was somebody who, like I don't know her yet, and she was asking because she works in office management
Mm,
and employees well-being, and so
mm.
I was telling her like I'm scared shit to go back to an office job one day, because I have chronic health issues, and I tell her, like, yeah, I have chronic digestion issue and insomnia, and she looks at me and she says, "Why?" And I'm like, what is this question?
Well, because
Like,
I was at a buffet with all diseases and illnesses, and I thought chronic insomnia, that sounds cool. I'm gonna get it.
I chose that one because I felt like being up at night was awesome.
Sure. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
And it's such,
Okay.
you know what it is
Yeah.
to,
Mm.
open up something so personal and
Mm.
then having such a weird reaction, or like people don't understanding what it means at all. And maybe it's just like I share too much information too quickly.
No, I mean, I get it. Like the thing with people don't not getting it, right? Like, I mean, it depends on how they approach it, right? Like, I mean, I I mean, I have to explain, like, not many people know endometriosis. And
Mhm.
also it's okay that they ask because it shows up differently in everyone, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
every person, just shows up differently.
yeah.
So it's like, am I okay with like people like, hey, okay, how is it? How is it for you? What is your lived experience with this illness? I
Mhm,
feel
mhm.
like cool. Yes, great question. Love
Yeah.
to share. I don't know. It's more like the other things where I feel super not, I don't know, not heard or not taken seriously. Like I also have celiac disease.
Okay.
So gluten.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And like I certain people in my life, some friends, some family who still don't get
Mm,
that. I don't know, bar. Yes, I don't know. Yes, that's also gluten. And yes,
yes.
an omelet
Yeah.
is also gluten. And yes, that's also gluten. Like,
Mhm, mhm.
and they
And
still would come,
yeah.
and they would still be like, "Oh, I got you something. I don't know, a special." And they still, I don't know, bring something with gluten. You're like,
Mm,
oh, come on! Like, how many? Then I
yeah.
feel like, I don't know. Then if on good days I'm like, yeah, whatever, and on bad days I get resentful because I'm like,
Yeah.
seriously, come
Yeah.
on, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing is that there's some good days and some bad days.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
you never know what to expect, right?
Yes,
You
yeah.
don't know how it's gonna be like
No,
that day.
how many
So
spoons you got?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm trying to work on that and doing stuff in the morning now because, or like depending. But yeah, that's when I'm the most productive. But when I have
Yeah,
insomnia, my morning is fucked.
yes, yeah, exactly. But exactly, it's about the flexibility to say, okay, my night was shit. Um, I need to prioritize something else, something differently this morning.
Yeah.
Um, and it's ugh, and I just don't get why, yeah, like why still, and I see it's changing, but it's changing
Mhm.
too slowly for like in corporate life for my taste, but that's
Yeah.
me. I'm impatient, but it will change because there is like the next generation is even more where like, what the fuck, I'm not putting up with this shit, and rightly so.
Yeah, yeah. And I think with COVID, we were able to see also some invisible disabilities that,
Mm,
like people who are immunocompromised, who
mm,
still can go back to an office, and
mm.
people had, like office managers and
Yes.
CEOs have had to, adapt to that. And I think it's good that it makes the conversation on the table, but I feel like a lot of people are forgetting that COVID is still here, for example,
Mm. Yes.
that a lot of people are still
Mm.
in danger. Like there's still a lot of people dying from it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And like I think it was a really great though, to see, like every the company I worked for before I started going out on my own, they were like, oh no one can work at home. Like, oh, no one will do anything when they're at home. And like COVID showed us, well, actually, I think most countries like actually they're like all the like global the economies actually did a plus. Like it's not people went not home and did nothing.
No, it's only managers who hate that because they're the only one not producing anything, and so they can't show their face. And that's an issue for them. It's not an issue for the people who produce work. So it's nice that companies are starting to adapt a little bit to that.
That's true. So you're back now in France. In France, you have started your own branding agency.
Yeah, so I actually started it in the US.
Okay.
I didn't go back to France right away. But yeah, I started freelancing, you know. So I was doing everything and nothing. A lot of websites, web design, like icon sets, business cards for people, but it was a mess. I also did some greeting cards because I really wanted to get into illustration, but at some point I moved into a van, so I couldn't have stock, you know. So yeah, all of that. And at some point I was like, well, dang, why don't I, it took me a while, kind of slow this way, but why don't I build a business that supports my value and with which I can support other businesses that share the same values around the environment, around people and the planet. And like, that's when everything that I had learned around branding started to click, like, oh, I need to have my own brand, duh. Just
that's kind of like that's the old saying of like the cobbler's children have the worst shoes, right? Like
exactly. I had touched at branding in all the companies I had worked for, because I either worked on their branding or worked for our clients' branding. But then like I hadn't thought about like my own company or thinking of myself as a company, you know. I was thinking as myself as an individual at the beginning. But then I was like, no, I want to build a company. I want to have, you know, maybe other people working with me at some point. So I need a global, an overall entity. And that's how Spark and Bloom came to be.
I love that. And that's that what you said, like you thought of yourself as an individual and not as a company. And with that, like, it's not that everyone has to build like go with like an overall entity, right? But it's something I see so many clients or like people who start who are still very early in their business entrepreneurial journey struggle, that most of my clients, like almost all of them, are expert service providers. They are absolutely excellent at what they do. But those who are newer in business for themselves, what happens is they have no idea how to run a company. They have no idea of like the administrational side of things, like taxes and bookkeeping and marketing and sales and whatever. And it's okay, right? Because that wasn't your job before. Your job was your service. And what happens is they kind of they kind of mish everything together and be like, oh, okay, I'm shit at sales, I'm shit at marketing, I'm shit at bookkeeping, I'm shit at what I do. I'm like, no. It's that part of you is excellent. You don't need another course that teaches you how to do XYZ. It's fine. But yes, you might need a little help when it comes to bookkeeping or marketing or whatever, right? But knowing that having this one hat, this one persona in you that need help is, I feel that it's a big game changer when you look at it like that, and not like, oh, I'm just gonna crap all over my business because I'm not getting this one thing right.
No, right. And that's how business operates, right? When you work at a company, there is a bookkeeper, there is an accountant, there is an HR person.
And when you're on your own, when you're starting out, or if you're on your own by choice, You're all these person. You're all these
You're all
people.
the persons. Yeah, yeah. I did, for example, on my phone, I'm on my calendar, I put lunchtime and downtime at night so that, like it's a little bit like my CEO self gave the authorization to my producer self, executive self, to be okay, to not feel guilty, to take some downtime. I'm trying to wear the different hats this way and be compassionate about both parts.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a great strategy to be, I mean, you have to manage your own time. So you're like, okay, no, I know, I don't know, I always have like at 3 o'clock, I'm always kind of like, ooh, drowsy, and I need I need a walk, or I need a cup of coffee or whatever. And then putting it in and be like, no, actually my manager my manager said I gotta take a break now.
Exactly. And it works. At least for me, it works.
No, and I feel it does for a lot of people, because it kind of takes the pressure off, and to see like, oh, because it never helps if you just say, oh, like I'm shit, I suck at business, right? Like, well, surely you didn't have the sheer thought of going into business when everything you do is shit. You probably thought, hey, I'm doing this so well, this comes so easy to me, a lot of people have said this is so great, that could be a business. So you do something good and other things might need work.
You learn, or you hire somebody else and you invest in your business. And you change your story too, like the way you identify with yourself, or with the different hats. You can tell yourself you're shit at business, or you can tell yourself you're learning at business.
Yes, exactly.
That completely change your perspective and the way you approach the issue also.
Yeah, or like certain things where you're like, I don't, it's okay, I always kind of say it's not but it's and, for example, like I don't know, I suck at sales, but I want to earn more money. Well, then it's kind of like like the idea is dead there, it stops. Why when you say, okay, I suck at marketing and I want to earn more money, then you're like, oh, okay,
then you can,
it has a continuation to it, right? You're like, your mind is curious. I'm like, well, or like I want to,
how do you solve this?
Exactly. Or or I want to work less and earn more. You're like, your mind is already going, okay, but it's just cool to suck. It's end. It's just stops.
I love that. It's not but, it's end. It's end.
That's kind of like one of my little mindset friends.
I love it.
Like, tell me about a time you truly fucked up.
Okay. Okay. Both the client and I fucked up. It was one of my very, very first projects when I came out of freelance. And it was also like a friend and clients of my mom. So like, bad.
How did that go for you?
Not well. So I was making an album cover for him, and there was like a very hard line because there was a concert, so they need to print.
Okay, so it was really like, I need it, like there's a date, blah blah.
And I don't remember, I think it was just a typo in one of the names or something. But they didn't see it. They didn't see the typo. I typed it, and they did see.
Well, they get a proof to sign, so
yeah, exactly. So, but that's on their hand. But what I didn't do well is that I didn't really care because it was their fault. And so I didn't handle the relationship well.
The communication,
like I think I didn't say I'm sorry. I think I didn't like try to make it better. I didn't try to find a way to make it better. I didn't know how. I didn't have the business skills of saying, well, okay, next time I will not make you pay, or because I didn't have the marketing or business skills to handle it better after. It was not my fault, but still I could have made it way much better after.
Yeah, you could have. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? If it's always your choice, like if something like this happens, you can either decide that client, I don't want to deal ever again with that client, so I don't care.
Sure.
Or you say, okay, actually it wasn't that bad, it's actually kind of cool, there could be more coming, I like to work like a client, so on. How can I make the client experience better?
Yeah. And the client's experience is everything, right?
Yes.
That's how you build trust. That's how you give that
especially
feeling of safety.
I'd say, especially, I mean, if you're listening and you have a product-owned business, different, because there is a lot about the product. But if you're a high fat chance that you're a service provider when you're listening, client experience is everything.
Yeah.
Because most of the time, the client cannot properly assess and value the service you provide.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a market of lemons. Like when you go to a doctor, you need to trust the doctor that they're telling you what they prescribing you and so on.
Yeah.
So if you hire a copywriter or an SEO strategist, let's go with SEO strategist. That's always seems to confuse people.
Although, you don't know what they're doing.
but anyway, so you have to trust that what they're doing in the back end of your website with speed and whatever tax, that is good and right and helping you, because you have no means of actually controlling it.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be confident. I actually have an example. I was just before our podcast today, I was writing a newsletter about how to make a person lose trust in your brand. And I was actually giving the example, very real, that I've had with a company who sells products. They have a really cool system in place. They sell ceramic pieces, and I've heard about them from branding, someone who's in branding, telling me that they have a great brand story, but also they try to do good. So I was like, yeah, awesome.
Sounds good. Sign me up.
Sounds awesome. I want to go check it out. Their products are amazing. They're very expensive. They're beautiful. They're awesome. And
so far, so good.
So far, so good. Their story is great too. And they have a way to access their collection of, not so perfect pieces that they can sell to full price.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't care if there's a flaw in the ceramic, but
they're super expensive. So if I can access them for like 30% off, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And so the way to access this collection is to donate to an organization they partner with. They choose a different one every quarter, and it's a grassroots movement. It's like a nonprofit, and you can donate as much as you want. It can be $1, it can be 10.
Yeah, you show proof of donation, you kind of like get access to.
So awesome. I think that's like
that's a really cool concept.
Spread wealth, And so I did that 2 times, and I've never received the password to get the access to the collection. And I also emailed them after, like, saying, hey,
I love everything about your company. Why doesn't your company love me?
Exactly. Like, and because they're also giving me something very tangible to expect from them.
Yeah.
So and they don't follow through on that, and I'm like, well, come on. That's a beautiful initiative. That's a beautiful system. I want to support it. I want to support you. And you let me down.
I want to throw money at you, but you're not letting me.
Yeah, exactly. So that kind of sucked.
And you've never heard back from them ever?
Nope.
God.
Yeah, that doesn't feel great. So that's how you can lose trust with customer experience when you're a product company. It's like not following through on what you say you would do.
I mean, not following through, that kind of makes you lose trust anywhere, in business, in life. Like that is true too. Like if you say A, you gotta deliver A. And the thing is, like, and that's the problem. either A can be really tangible,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like I do this, I get access to the platform, pretty tangible.
Yeah.
If I give you money, I get shoes, pretty tangible. But
Yeah.
where it gets kind of tricky is like the whole, I mean, I personally, I don't just sell brands. I sell the transformation behind it.
Sure.
There it gets tricky, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
how to talk about a transformation. If I say, oh, I'm going to live a transformation A, and the client expects transformation A, but is he really sure what I mean with transformation A? Or is it transformation A in the client's mind, which doesn't necessarily need to be the same thing?
Right. Yeah.
So I feel it gets very tricky.
Yeah, and clarity is so important, especially, you know, when you work online, where you're not necessarily going to meet the person, you don't feel, or when you communicate only through emails or text, it's a lot of things that lost in translation, right? So yeah, clarity and communicating transparently is like disclaimers. That's something we talk a lot about in the ethical move. It's disclaimers, because you can't control everything.
Wow.
You know, you're one person, you're one business owner doing many, many things throughout the day.
Yes.
And you can't control what others are going to feel like, and you can't control
You can never. This is the law of communication. You have no control over how the communication is received by someone else.
Yeah. And so disclaimers, I think, are a really good way to apprehend these type of issues and to anticipate and to make sure people understand, okay, not everything might go perfectly well, and that's okay. This is what we're doing to help with it.
Yeah. I mean, I like the disclaimer idea.
It just feels a little better than when it's a surprise.
Oh no, God, yes. Oh God, surprise. Yeah, no surprises. But I feel, or I'm trying to incorporate that into the way I brand and market. Like, for example, the CD group, right? You know, like as we've talked before we went live, I think we last spoke in July.
Yeah.
And we had to cancel a couple of times because shit got in the way and life happens. Yeah. That's the CD group. And I feel the clients who sign up with me, they know this. They know shit can come up.
Yeah.
And that's cool. Because at the end of the day, they're getting what they came for, what they desire, and then some. But it's different, right? Like I make it very clear in how I position myself. Like, hey, look, chicken can go down. Like, I don't, if you're here to do my grammar check, then please do, because I don't know, I couldn't care less about it. I have never said a comma right in my life. It drives my partner crazy because he's a teacher, and he's like, how can you place a comma there? Like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, whatever. But so it's really about being intentional with that and building that and
absolutely. Yeah, setting the expectation right with your audience, saying, you know, things are gonna be slower because I'm only 1%. Shit happens.
Yeah, and also
you want to be intentional.
Yes, and I feel this is also where there's space for entrepreneurs to talk about their chronic illnesses, right? It's not a way of apologizing. It's not a way of, oh, please have pity with me, I feel so bad. But it's about just being honest and managing expectations and saying, look, I'm not doing the 24 hours turnaround because or whatever it is, you about your boundaries, right? Being very, very clear about your boundaries. Like I have, when I do contracts, like coach clients or deal redesign contracts, they're like 5 pages long, which most people are like, why? And I'm like, well, it's not just legal things. It's also just kind of like a manual how we work together, right? Like, what are our boundaries? When can you expect me to reply? How fast? Like, what do I expect? How fast do I expect you to reply to me? Just all these kind of boundaries that we're just very intentional about, and be like, hey, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want you to waste my time.
Yeah.
And really be intentional about how you work together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Expectation management. I like that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah. And it's a way to be very transparent about and yeah, setting up the foundation of a good relationship, right?
Yes.
Explain, okay, this is the way I work, this is what I'm flexible on, this is what I'm not flexible on. And this way there's no guesswork. And it's less energy. You can concentrate on what's important, which is a project, right?
Yeah. And I mean, that goes also for your personal style, right? Like, I mean, I say no to a lot of design projects. I'm just like, that's not my, I can do many styles. I've done many different styles, but there's some things I'm just, no. Like if it's, but I mean, I can do like corporate, and I can do like advertising things, but there's certain things where you're like, this is not my style. It's okay if you want to do that, it's fine, but it's not my style. So here, please, are other people who do something similar, please go talk to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think people see that a little bit. I guess not always. I had someone telling me one time that she didn't realize beforehand that the person she was hiring, a designer, was only working in that one style, because she didn't have the awareness, the visual awareness to, identify this as a style.
Yes.
And it was not what she was expecting in the end. And so the project didn't work out well. And I thought that it was interesting, because that's then the responsibilities on us as designer, right?
That's our own blindness, our own, like, we're so deep into what we do. For us, it's like clear as day that if you want to have a certain illustration style, a certain photography style, you go seek out the illustrators and photographers who shoot in that specific way. Point.
Yeah. You
do not, like, I don't know, have a black white photographer suddenly do pop colors.
Yeah, exactly. But I would I also want to say that one of designer jobs is to be able to adapt to the client.
Yes.
And I feel like, okay, when you are at the point where you only work in one style, you're like at the artist point, you're not a designer anymore. You're expressing yourself through your design, and people come to you because of that.
Yes. Which is, I love that distinction. And it's, I see it when I think of two clients of mine who do wedding photography, and they're really at the point where, like, they're like, no, look, this is my style. Take it or leave it. It's not as much of a service anymore as it's an artistry. It's really like an art form they're performing. And it's really, and there's value in both, right? Like, I sometimes feel like we tend to look down on, like, people who are like, I don't know, service horse. I don't know, but do everything. But it's also like a really great skill to be adaptable to different design styles, and also, like, hey, I think it's cool. I want to do different things. I don't want to be nailed to one specific thing. Hey, I just reminded. Had an idea, like, when you talked about, like, the really bad user experience example, with that access code that never came. I was like, man, I want to share a good example of good. And I just thought of the one I had. It was we went to South Tyrol for our summer vacation this year, to a family hotel. I always thought I'm never the person who goes to family hotels, but here we are, and I see the beauty of it.
Well,
and I mean, I have stayed. It was a great hotel, and I've stayed a lot of really great hotels all over the world. But this hotel was the first hotel who sent me a pre-stay questionnaire.
Oh, interesting. What were they asking you?
They were asking a lot of things. and they had like different funnels for it, because that's the marketer in me. I filled it out 5 times just to see where, like, what would the next question be.
That's so cool.
What's the tree? So I'm like, oh, so like they had a question, so like, oh, okay, so you're planning a family vacation. Yeah. Is it more like, do you want a more like a relaxing family vacation or more an active family vacation? Relaxing would be, hey, here's our spa offering. Active would be, hey, these are like the family llama treks we do, and the hikes and whatever. I'm like, smart.
Yeah, totally.
And then what's my personal favorite? They were asking you about your diet preferences.
Awesome.
I mean, wonderful. Me celiacs, I'm like, hallelujah, thank God. And that was also really interesting. Because they had a big pool and big spa area, they were also asking what size of robe they can have ready in your room. And sizes went from XS, adult sizes went from XS to 3X large.
That sounds wonderful.
I was like, I already, like, they do expectation management, right? And what is the value, like the economic value in this? I already love this company. I go there with like, I already love this hotel. So even if they would fuck up, and there were one or two things where I'm like, could have been handled better, but overall it didn't compromise the experience, because I was already going into this experience with like, I love this company, they're doing great.
Totally.
Right? Totally. That's the economic value of expectation management.
And I would add clients' data.
Oh God, yes. Oh God. I mean, yes. And then you go into really marketing thing. Then you go like, I got all the client data. And then you're like, and what was your initial cost of setting this up? I mean, this was a Typeform thing. So a couple $100 a year for Typeform. Okay. And then I don't know, creating 2 different funnels. Okay. Some initial, someone had to think a bit. Okay. But it's no cost, because you got the email anyway. So it's at no cost to send an automated email out. And usually hotels only do that after the stay. Please rate your stay.
But you're gone already. You're
already gone. I don't care about rating it. But or most likely gonna rate it if something was really bad.
Exactly.
So sending someone pre-stay, I've never had that ever in any hotel. I thought it was genius.
That's awesome. Totally. That makes you feel good. It makes you feel like you're gonna be
valued, seen.
Yeah.
And I thought just and then again, not just the sheer act, but also the way they wrote about it. Like they said, like, they not said diet restrictions, they said dietary preferences. So I felt like really included and seen, and like with the sizing, like, oh, 3X large, wow, okay, cool, not just like a large, right? So
that's awesome.
It's really about making people feel seen, and that's, to me, that's also part of ethical marketing, right? It's
absolutely,
it's not just about giving back and spreading wealth. It's also that, and it's also about sustainably using resources, but it's also making people again feeling more like they're human beings.
Yeah, absolutely. It's bringing back the dignity into marketing and business, and it's making people feel that they are safe with you and they can trust you with whatever there is to trust, right? So that's and because we put a lot of the blame on the individuals, like choosing the right company and on to change things, to change the world, to vote with their dollars. But it's a two-way relationship. Like the businesses have to do the first step to meet the audience, the people who wants to do good. And so it's and small businesses, especially because we're so many. We're so many, and the numbers keep growing because it's hard to work in a company and everything. and it's easier for us to change things than in a big company where
Yes,
there's so many moving parts.
agreed.
So changing the status quo, I really think, comes from the smaller businesses who try to do things better. Yeah.
What, like, maybe to kind of like go into that a bit. You've said before it started, everything started clicking for you when you said like, oh, I'm actually gonna focus on ethical marketing and ethical branding, and I'm gonna use this in a way to position myself.
Mm-hmm.
How did that, like, how did you walk the talk for your business?
So there's many different things. You know, it's not just putting a question in your question, what are your pronouns?
Yes. Yeah, no, and it's also not like just, you know, that's one of my problems with value, like with mission statements and values, right? Like they're always nouns, like diversity.
Yeah.
Values are not nouns, values are
Yeah.
actions, values are verbs. So how
Yeah.
are you filling these buzzwords, ethical, sustainable, diversity? How are you filling them with life, with action? That's what's interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm also very much an advocate for action-based sentences for core values. That's what I tell my clients. They're so much easier to use. Like they become actual tools.
Yeah, you have no idea what someone wants to say with diversity. Okay.
Yeah,
Whatever. Like,
authenticity.
yeah, even with diversity, it can mean a whole shit ton of things.
Yeah, exactly. And so you know, like I go back and forth with the word ethical because we also have our own set of values. I prefer the word mindful just because I feel like it just shows more that you're paying attention and
Yes, you're slowing down,
you're
you're thinking, you're making a real, you take time to make a choice decision.
exactly. And things are not final. You're not, you know, like being
Yeah,
an
oh, I like that. Yeah,
business,
I
you're an
like that
ethical
aspect.
business,
Yeah, that you're
but
like
there's
allowed
always
to
work
change
to
your
do.
mind.
Yeah. It's kind of like you said with but and end. It's like, no, you're never finished. You're
Yes,
never
yes.
done. There's always something, you're always learning more. Uh,
Yes.
and so, well, one of the few things I do that I would like to do better at is I offset my carbon emissions. Uh, and offsetting is not the best because, you know, because the best would be to be regenerative so that you put out better than what you take out of produce. But for now, this is a solution that I have because I don't have a lot of resources apart from a little bit of money that I can offer. And I also don't really know exactly yet how to account for everything that I put out. So like I have a designer friend, a marketing friend who's working on, you know, doing sustainability reports to help people, solopreneurs, do sustainable reports more easily, etc. And so I'm really excited about that because I feel like right now I don't have the resources to do that on my own, and having that help would be wonderful. And so ethical marketing, you know, it's like when there's a community, the ethical move community, and we're just spending our time questioning everything that we do and trying to find the best solution for right now for what we're doing and where we want to go. So we spend our time assessing, okay, I would love to do that. We would love to have a more diverse community, to people with diverse ethnicities to feel more safe. How can we do that? And then it's asking our team members and it's asking ourselves what are the resources we can put out, because we're also a team of volunteers. And so and we all have our own businesses. So how much and
how can you bring it all together?
Yeah. And self-care is a big part of our values because we don't want to burn out, because the work is important. The work that we do is important to us. And so we have like a self-care channel in Slack.
Oh, that's nice.
So that we can say, hey, sorry, I'm not available right now. I'm under the weather and I'll be back next week or something like that.
Yeah, that's nice. Like, I like that. And especially like, because if you want to change something, it's not going to be a sprint, it's going to be a marathon. So you have to prioritize your own well-being first. And having a space or a Slack channel where you can say, you know, not today. And without like, you know, without fear of judgment or fear or justification or like, you know, just it is what it is. It's not today.
And at the basis of, you know, the way I understand it of ethical marketing is really thinking of your audience, your clients as humans. Like, it's crazy, you know, I started my journey in the online business
with you only see conversions and
all the hustle,
side views,
stuff like that, where you're trying to manipulate people with your pricing and stuff, but it's forgetting that you have in front of you another person with you know, emotions and a background and an experience that is going to react to that in a certain way. It can be shame, it can be having a trauma response, it can be you know. And so bringing back the dignity and the respect of people and of the planet ultimately in the way we do business.
I love that. That's already kind of like a beautiful sentence to wrap up. Like, just really focusing on there is a room and space for numbers and data, but also really seeing like, oh hey, behind every user digitally traced user journey and every cookie set, there's actually a human being. There's actually a human being. And if you rely on like pain point marketing, it could trigger a response that is not wanted, or it was also probably not your intention.
It might not be your intention, but you can
to really be mindful of that, of how you put out. I love that. Hey Jeanne, where can people find you online? How can they find the ethical movement? Tell me about where you hang out.
So they can find me at sparkandbloomstudio.com. I have a weekly newsletter that I send out with music and some thoughts on branding. I am on Instagram in DM and stories, but my profile, my grid is static now because and
that's fine. No shame.
I'm on LinkedIn too at Jeanne Carlier. And the ethical move is super awesome. So come check us out.
Come join us.
There's a pledge to take if you're not ready for the community, and it's on the ethicalmove.org, and you can learn about the community there too.
Oh, that's nice. So you can kind of like tap your foot into it.
And there's a lot of resources there too. We have a whole page of resources to learn.
I love that. So in terms of ethical marketing, you also brought another resource for everyone who's listening. It's how to appeal to your ideal audience. Do you want to briefly tell me about your workbook?
It's a workbook that you can pay what you can to get. So, you know, like when I was saying you work with humans, the idea is that you're building a relationship with your audience, and to build a fulfilling relationship, you need to know who you're talking to and what you're going to resonate with and what is going to make them feel safe. And so you can meet them where they're at. This workbook really helps you dig into that, learn how to do market research with the resources that you have, and then how you can translate what you learn with your brand voice and your brand design.
I love it. Very good. Yay.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'm also going to link that in the show notes.
Okay.
So, and before I let you go, I always have one last question because I always need new material.
Okay.
What book are you currently reading?
Or
audiobook if
Find Your Fuck Yeah by
That sounds amazing.
It is awesome. Let me open it to give you the name of the author real quick. of course, Audible is taking its sweet time.
Yeah, of course.
It is by Alexis Rockley. She is a neuroscience nerd like me, and so she talks a lot about neuroscience and how a human being functions.
Yeah,
and it's amazing, and it's really fun.
Yeah, I mean, already the title sounds "Find Your Fuck Yeah."
Yeah.
Oh, the subtitle is "Stop censoring who you are and discover what you really want."
Yeah.
Nice. I'm gonna put that on my reading pile.
Awesome.
Hey, Jeanne, thank you so much for taking the time to join me on the Scenic Route podcast. It was so great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for our conversation. It was really fun.